Today we are going to make authentic Southern chicken fried chicken that's super crispy with a creamy white pepper gravy smothered on top. This is classic stick to your rib comfort food. So let's get those sweatpants on and we'll get cooking. We'll first start by mixing up all the dry ingredients in a shallow pie dish. We'll add 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And now we'll season up the flour. I usually season everything from scratch, but I found this really good chicken fried steak seasoning mix at this cute shop in Franklin, Tennessee. So I'll add the link to the savory spice shop so you can buy it online. But I also have a full recipe on how to make the seasoning from scratch, which I've done various times before. I add a few tablespoons of this seasoning mix, but I add it slowly and then taste it as I go, just to make sure it's perfectly seasoned. Now that my flour mixture is just right, I'll grab a second shallow dish and we'll mix up all of the wet ingredients. I'll start with 2 whole eggs and 1.5 cups of whole milk. Sometimes people get confused and use buttermilk for this step, but buttermilk is actually better for marinating and not for breading your chicken. This is my absolute favorite hot sauce right now, and we'll add about 1 tablespoon of hot sauce to this mixture. Of course, you can adjust that to your liking. Now we'll whisk up the wet ingredients until it's nice and smooth, and you just want to make sure that you have no more clumps of eggs left in the mixture. Now we'll start breading the chicken, but one tip that took me years to learn is to use one hand dedicated to the dry ingredients and one hand dedicated to the wet ingredients so you don't get those big, thick clumps of breading stuck to your fingers. So our breading process will be dry, wet, dry. And when you dip it into the wet mixture, you don't want to let it drip off a lot. You want to take a lot of that excess liquid back into the flour dish. That helps create those shaggy crumbs that stick to the breading and make it extra crispy. I like to pat that breading on the chicken and I toss it a couple of times just to make sure there's no spots that are missing breading. Once I'm done breading my chicken, I'll place them on a baking sheet lined with foil or parchment paper. We'll let the chicken rest at room temperature to take off that chill before we fry it, and we will get our oil hot. I start with about 1 quart of canola oil or peanut oil if you're looking for better flavor, and we'll heat it to 350 degrees. We'll add just 2 to 3 pieces of chicken at one time to make sure you don't overcrowd the pan, and we'll cook them for 3 minutes on each side or until they're a nice golden brown color. While the chicken is finishing up, I like to place a cooling rack on top of a foil or paper towel lined baking sheet so you can allow all that excess moisture and oil to drip away from the chicken. Now I'll repeat the same steps with the remaining pieces of chicken, but just make sure to keep an eye on your oil temperature because it will fluctuate up and down. While the chicken is resting, we'll go ahead and prepare the white pepper gravy. We'll add a few tablespoons of butter along with 1/4 cup of the pan drippings, and make sure to grab some of those brown bits at the bottom of the fry oil because those give the gravy a lot of flavor. Now we'll add 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour and whisk it until it absorbs all the liquid in the pan, and then we'll let it cook and bubble for about 1 to 2 minutes. Then next we'll add 2 cups of whole milk and continue to whisk until it's nice and smooth. I have to mention that the most important part of this gravy is truly the seasonings. I mean, without that, it's just milk, flour, and a little butter and oil, which is essentially completely flavorless. So when people say they can't make gravy or their gravy never turns out, 9 times out of 10, it's because they're just not putting enough seasoning. So it does feel weird to put several teaspoons of pepper and salt and poultry mix into a gravy, but that is the only way to give it tons of flavor and make it delicious. I highly recommend you just taste it as you go so that you can perfectly balance all the seasonings. And of course, it makes sense to bring in some of those flavors that are in the chicken breading, so I'll add a few teaspoons of that chicken fried steak seasoning as well. After this has been cooking over medium-low for about 3 to 5 minutes, it'll start to thicken up and really take on a gravy form. But if it gets a little too thick, you can thin it out by adding a few splashes of milk or chicken stock and another tablespoon of butter. Now, of course, this dish would not be complete without mashed potatoes and vegetables like corn or green beans. And of course, you have to have the biscuits or the dinner rolls. I mean, there's no skimping on this one. You gotta do it right. If you have any childhood memories of having a decadent comfort food Sunday dinner at your mom's house or your grandmother's house, this for sure will transport you right back there. It is absolutely incredible, so comforting, and for sure one of my absolute favorite dishes of all times. Hopefully you'll enjoy this recipe and make it for all of your loved ones because it truly warms your soul. The full details to my chicken fried chicken recipe are listed on my website at badbatchbaking.com. If you're looking for more Southern-inspired food, up next I'll be posting my recipe for authentic Nashville hot chicken inspired by Prince's famous hot chicken in Nashville. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can be notified as soon as I post my next recipe.